Hey everyone, I want to quickly go through the talent options that we have for Phase 3. Phase 3 gave us some new interesting runes, but nerfed the hell out of our Lake of Fire rune, which makes Destruction a little bit different. Even with that in mind, Destruction is still decent, and currently looking like our top tier spec. However, I will be trying out F talents as I feel it could be good with a little bit of tuning. So first up is the Destruction talents. Now this is a pretty standard Destruction build where, we buff all fire damage that we have, while also buffing up our imp. Now we have 6 points to spare, which I have opted to put into 2 points into Demonic Embrace, and 4 points into Fell Intellect. Now since with more stats we have, our pet has more stats, which also gives us a slightly bigger spell power on our Demonic Knowledge rune. Now there is a case to be made to actually put the points in Improved Shadow Bolt. Yeah, so this is mainly for trash, where we can swap out our rune to put a Shadow Bolt Volley rune on our gloves and, pew pew harder doing trash and swap back a Chaos Bolt rune when it comes to boss. So yeah, that's pretty straightforward. Now as for runes, we are going with Backdraft on our head, obviously. Backdraft gets us spellcasting haste. So yeah, very good rune for destruction. For chess, we'll go Demonic Tactics for the 10% crit. For wrist is in a weird spot as Emo Aura currently looks to be the best, but that would force us to be in melee range for most of the boss fights, and that's just wrong in my opinion. Felguard is a better option. It's an option, I wouldn't say a better, it is an option. However, I feel its damage is kind of weak compared to the Imp. The Imp does have mana issues on longer fights, so we have to take that into account. So I would suggest to go for the Felguard if the fights are longer. If you find your fights are long, go with the Felguard. If your fights are short, I would go for the Imp. Now for your hands, of course, Chaos Bolt, the best spell in the game. For Waste is a toss-up for me between Grimoire of Synergy and Shadow and Flame. Now the reason I say this is with the amount of crit that we currently have with Demonic Tactics, I feel we can get a high uptime for Shadow and Flame. However, it's only 10% extra damage versus 25% from Grimoire. But the Grimoire would be give and take on RNG. But currently for destruction, I think Grimoire would be the better option, right? Now for legs, it's a no-brainer. It will be Incinerate. Together with our feet will be Demonic Knowledge. Now as for the rotation, it will actually look something like this. As a precast, you would want to cast Incinerate to ensure that you have your fire buff. Then cast Curse of Elements or Shadow depending on which curse duty you are on. Followed by Immolate and Conflag immediately after. Now if you have cooldowns, you might want to pop it for Conflag, just before Conflag, to get the most out of it. Now once you cast Conflag, you will actually have a Backdraft buff for 10 seconds, which will hasten your spell casting. So with that, after it consumes your Immolate, you would want to cast another Immolate, followed by Shadow Bolt, and then Incinerate. This will be a filler spell. Now then, of course, you will have two cooldowns to keep track of. Conflag and Chaos Bolt, just cast them whenever it's on cooldown. You want Backdraft as much as possible, so you do want to cast Conflag as much as possible. And after that, follow up with, of course, Immolate. Now for Immolate, if the boss has less than 10 seconds alive, you can actually ignore casting Immolate after the Conflag because you're not going to get much value out of the Immolate. So just continue pew-pewing Shadow Bolts and Incinerate. And of course, finally, it's not here, you can actually end the kill off with a Shadow Burn. So yeah, and that is the rotation for Destruction. Now the other spec I'm pretty keen to try is F, of course. Now, so these are the talents that I chose. A lot of it are filler talents, but you would want Improved Curse of Agony, you would want Amplify Curse, Nightfall, and of course Shadow Mastery. The rest are mostly filler talents which you can play around with. I would suggest to put more points than this tree that you see here into Suppression if you're out in the open world farming higher level mobs for quests and stuff, right? Now the 11 remaining points I've gone into the Destruction tree, into Improved Shadow Bolt and Bane, because Shadow Bolt is going to be your filler spell and majority of your damage after all. Now the last point you can actually put into Devastation for that 1% crit. Bear in mind this crit only affects destruction spells, so that only applies to your Chaos Ball, not your dots. The alternative build is you can actually put it in Shadow Burn because it is a shadow damage, instant cast, good finisher, all the good stuff. Now for runes, you of course want Pandemic for your hit slot, dots critting, what's not to love. For your chest, I would go with Demonic Tactics, additional 10% crit on your dots, lovely, even more lovely. For wrist, I would go UA and Haunt for the hands, pretty staple F build. Now for your waist, I'm gonna try Shadow and Flame. Now only reason is that I see dots critting so often, and I think I can maintain a high uptime of Shadow and Flame with all dots critting. So this is yet to be tested, but for now I do want to test Shadow and Flame. Now for legs, now you would probably be wondering why I'm building such a crit heavy talent, right? So it's mainly because of this. I'm planning to use Demonic Grace for my legs. Now the bad thing about this is it takes up a GCD, right? So casting is going to feel awkward, but the good thing is it gives me 30% crit. Now with that 30% crit and with a 6% timer, you can actually get your UA, an Amplified Curse of Agony, and Corruption cast, all with this additional 30% crit, because once you cast, that crit is actually fixed throughout the whole duration. So it's actually quite very beneficial. Now of course the main thing that I'm worried about is if the GCD is actually worth it, but this is something that I'm dying to find out. Now for feet, I'm actually going to go with the Demonic Knowledge, more spell power, can't complain there. As for rotation, you would want to precast and pray for a crit, precast Shadow Bolt, then cast Demonic Grace, followed by UA, Amplified Curse of Agony, there's a macro that you can do for one button, and Corruption, without losing any time in between those three casts. Remember, you want all these 3 dots to be critting for a lot, so you have to cast it within the Demonic Grace period. Now after that you follow it up with Haunt, and then you can actually go back to spamming Shadow Bolts. Remember to cast Demonic Grace every time it's off cooldown. It has a relatively short cooldown, I think it's like 18-20 seconds if I'm not mistaken, and you would either want to pair it with either a UA, Agony, or Corruption, or a Shadow Bolt, which hopefully crits and give you the ISB buff, and any one of your dots. I don't think you have enough time to actually squeeze in 2 dots there, but yeah, 1 dot is enough, preferably Agony, because I think Agony critting can be very, very interesting, especially an amplified one. Now Siphon Life, although you're talented for it, I think it's not a DPS increase at all to cast. I do recall in classic times back then, it would be worth to cast if ISB is up, because as a healing spells, it's actually snapshot. So yeah, more testing will be done, but for now, I don't think it's worth it. So yeah, these are the two talent builds which I'm dying to try out in Sunken Temple. And with the recent nerfs that the raid has had, I think we can speed things up, have shorter kill times, so destruction might be on top, but I'm still rooting for you for F, to be honest. So yeah, let's see. Anyway, thanks guys for listening in. I'll catch you guys later.